Welcome, dear viewer. This is Derpy. Sorry it's been a while. I'll talk about that a little later on, but hope y'all have been doing well while I've been gone. Before I get into the actual video, I wanted to say this is going to be entirely PvP related, and I'm not going to delve into PvE at all. Also, this is entirely a viewpoint from an invader, so keep that in mind. Alright. So I'm actually kind of surprised there's not many videos on this approach, or rather build, especially this late in the game. Don't get me wrong, there are videos pertaining to this build, but I just feel like something's missing and I wanted to try my hand at it, and I might not be the most qualified or the best to make a video on this kind of topic, but you know, I figured after so long I might as well, just in case. Only reason I even started making these builds were from general lack of info or insight on these builds to begin with. And the builds I'm talking about are luck builds, which you'll rarely ever see when invading, let alone use. So my job here is to hopefully interest you into trying one out, or at the very least teach you something you may not have known. There's plenty of reasons why you don't see luck builds running around as often as other builds, which I'll get into a little later on, but how do you even make a luck build? Well, let's start from the top. The first step is to decide your class, and there are 3 good classes for luck builds to choose. The first one is obviously Knight, and the other is Warrior, and actually Thief for some wackadoo stat alignments, but predominantly Knight and Warrior will be the best. Next, go and talk to Yol of Londor and level up at least once from him to receive a Dark Sigil. Fall off a cliff and die until you get 15 in hollowing, which you can see in your stat screen or from your character's face. From there, go as you would through the game normally, and we're actually not going to level up luck, as counterintuitive as that may sound, but that's because of the coals you're going to need. The first one, which is the Farron coal, is simple enough to get. From the Crucifixion Woods, hug the right side from the Halfway Fortress bonfire, go past the Black Knight and it'll be there. Easy. As for the Profane coal, I think Otts put it best.
Step number 1, pick up your weapon of choice. Step number 2, pick up a hollow gem at the Farron Keep. Step number 3, beat the entire fucking rest of the game until you get to the end of Erethil Dungeon so you can pick up the Profane coal that lets you infuse your weapon with hollow.
Yeah, so we're just gonna put luck on the back burner and just go with the regular build through the game, and then respec later when we have everything we need. As for the gems, there's 3 gems you'll want, which are hollow gems, bleed gems, and poison gems. You can find some throughout the game on corpses, but I want to give the spots that I used to farm these gems after I made my luck build. For poison gems, I'd recommend the Farron Keep's Ruins bonfire. The Grus there actually have a really good poison gem drop rate, and you'll also have the chance of getting their weaponry, which also inflicts poison. For bleed gems, you can farm the Erethil slaves that are in the basement from the Church of Yorshka's bonfire. And lastly, for hollow gems, the Halfway Fortress bonfire will be good since the Corvians are, just up top, just for some quick runs. If you want to make it to late game, I'd recommend the Ringed Inner Wall bonfire to farm the Undead Clerics. That's where I mainly farmed hollow gems and felt like I got the most success. Now, we should take a look at the weapons we could use that would make sense for a luck build, which would be weapons that have innate status buildup. For bleed weapons, we have 26 weapons that have innate bleed, and 6 weapons that have innate poison. Out of all these weapons, 28 of these are primarily dex weapons, or scale better in dexterity. For that reason, I would highly suggest when making your luck build that you level up dexterity as well, because you're going to need every point in damage you can get. That takes care of gems, coals, and weapons. Now that you got what you needed, go ahead and respec. The soul level and weapon upgrade you decide is entirely up to you. I'm just going to recommend using soulsplanner.com to see the optimal version of the build. You can see how much AR your weapons will have and how much status buildup you inflict with weapons and tools. Before you start moving points around though, it should be said that any weapons that are hollow infused and are in your hand, equipped, you'll gain temporary levels in the luck stat, as long as they are in your hand. The increase ranges from +2 to +5 levels, entirely dependent on your weapon's upgrade level. Unfortunately, in the game, the increase in luck will display on the AR of your weapon, but not on your status buildup. However, you can still see how status buildup changes through Soul Splinter, having hollow weapons equipped. And that's pretty much how you make a luck build in a nutshell. But how is it in PvP? Well, let me start by saying this build is going to have one key component that no other builds can capitalize on or utilize as well, and its greatest tool is status effects. Luck increases status effect buildup for weapons, status resins, and tools like throwing knives and kukris. Although the one thing I want to say about inflicting status effects is that it's not the sole thing you should focus on, and yes, there are some situations where inflicting a status effect will be more advantageous, but you should think of it as icing on the cake, or the cherry on top. It's that little sum you are rewarded if you are aggressive and smart enough to get that status procced. When to be overzealous and conservative will come with experience, and as you play you'll get better at which approach is better for the situation at hand. You'll probably be hard pressed to inflict status on a gonk, let alone good players in a dedicated gank. When that happens, I personally switch to hollow weapons rather than status infused weapons, because in the heat of battle or of a gank, that's going to be incredibly difficult to proc even a single status effect on one guy. Let me list the pros that luck builds have, because it does have some pros that are unique to luck builds alone. Only going to speak about the ones I think are the most prevalent. One is poison. Despite what many would tell you, poison is actually really good if you can keep the status supplied. And even if the opponent cures, you have a window to punish that cure. But if you keep poison applied, poison can take care of those opponents who have that sliver of health, deny some tears, or counter Somalia pirates who have access to Wi-Fi. Because of how easy it is to inflict poison, it makes luck builds that much better. Second, unsurprisingly, is bleed. Although Miyazaki hit bleed with the Nerf hammer back in the game's life cycle, mainly Carthus Rouge, bleeding people out is still usable through infusions and hollow weapons buffed with Carthus. It's nice proccing in the middle of combos, whether it be pseudo combos or true combos, and while it's nowhere near as effective as it used to be back in the days when Carthus Curse Sword was the meta, it can still be effective. Third is that status effects can synergize really well together to add more things for your opponent to manage in a fight. Imagine, your opponent is using a Carthus Curve Greatsword, buffed with Ron Pine Resin, and an Irithyll Straight Sword in the offhand. You get hit by both weapons and now you have 3 status effects slowly building up. If poison procs, you have to worry about your HP slowly going away, and then if you try to cure it, frost could be procced, and then you have to worry about healing and a debuff. You try to heal, and then your opponent bleeds you out. Like, jeez! That's just one example of status effects going really well with each other, but my god. Even if you think status effects are mediocre, there's something really scary about seeing 3 status bars on your screen slowly building up. Fourth, and the only pro where I would say that no other build really has, or not to the extent that luck builds have, is that having a co-invader that also runs a luck build synergizes really well. Because both of you, hopefully, are both inflicting status effects, which makes it a lot easier to proc status effects on enemies. Those are the major pros, but now let's talk about the cons, which I'm just going to also mention the major ones. One, and the most prominent one in my opinion, is the defense you'll have. I don't know if it's just me or what, but playing on luck builds make you feel so squishy, man. I'm talking about like straight up, it feels like you're wearing wet cardboard armor or something. Like, just sometimes it just feels like you get hit for so much. And the reason why I believe this is because of the general lack in vitality and strength you'll have, which both have a direct impact on flat defense. Although that may be different for you, should you choose to have a different kind of stat alignment for your luck build. The second is the damage output, or lack thereof. The scaling for luck on hollow infused weapons, to put it lightly, are not amazing, unfortunately. There are some outlier weapons, but you won't get more damage until you hit high soul levels. But in general, your weapons are going to be dealing lower damage than most other infusions. The third is the somewhat limited arsenal you can run, which is really only an issue for lower to mid levels since you have less points to put somewhere. Also, it sucks so much that there's only 2 weapons that have innate scaling in this game. And only one is what I and what others would probably consider good. If I had to compare luck builds to dark builds in a meta situation, be it Gank City or Ring City, I'm not saying that dark builds don't take a modicum of skill to do well with, but I think we can all agree that the pros of dark builds are so good that it makes even bad players be able to do extremely well with. And that's simply because of the build strengths. Like, let's just list a couple, right? They have good overall damage that chips through majority of shields. Second, they have access to all schools of casting in the game. Not to mention all the elemental infusions should they choose to go that route. And then they have Tears of Denial, which is such a clutch miracle at meta and even below, right? And then they have access to one of the most quote-unquote broken things in the game, which Skitter the Tryhard and others affectionately call the time-space abortion dagger. All of this to say, luck builds have pros, but you're going to have to work for them in the middle of the fight more so than any other build. But does that make it bad? Absolutely not. Luck builds just take more effort than other builds to reach its full potential. At mid and high soul levels, I think luck builds are perfectly good builds, and even for meta, I believe luck builds can hold their own no problem, because at meta you basically have the equivalent of a quality build, but have status effects mixed in to add more variety. Now finally, for the builds I made for luck. These are it. You'll notice that all of these have at least 18 strength, and that's for the Karthus Curved Greatsword, which I find to be an amazing poise weapon for luck builds, while still benefiting a lot from dexterity scaling. I usually pair it with an offhand like the Barbed Straight Sword or the Karthus Curved Sword, which the Karthus Curved Sword, I gotta admit, I never gave it a honest to goodness try in the game, mainly because of the reputation it once had. But after using it once all the balancing patches and all that, I can't believe I slept on this weapon for as long as I did. It has good range for a heavy curved sword, good damage even when hollow or status infused, innate bleed, can roll catch easily because it's a curved sword, and has a true combo being R2 into the full weapon art while two-handed. Even one-handed, I like it more than the Barbed Straight Sword because it has more range and has forward momentum on the swings. Another weapon that I enjoy pairing with the Karthus Curved Greatsword is the Irithyll Straight Sword. Even though luck doesn't affect frostbite, the range and the amount of frostbite buildup on the Irithyll Straight Sword is so good that I can get over the relatively low AR on my builds, especially because it enables me to have a tri-status setup, which I guarantee you don't see every day on Dark Souls 3. As for a poison poise weapon, there's none in the game that have poise and also does poison. But let me throw you something that I've seen some posts mention back when statuses were adjusted. A poison infused Astora Greatsword. No, you heard that correctly. A poison infused Astora Greatsword. I know it sounds like it wouldn't be good, but I promise you it actually is. The damage is still decent enough to have to be taken seriously, and the added benefit of poison buildup is what makes it good in a lot of situations. The buildup of statuses are increased based on how large the weapon is, so ultras deal a ton of buildup when infused with a status gem. Even on 7 luck, the poison Astora deals 98 poison buildup, and on 40 luck, it deals 133. To give you perspective on how much that is, for someone who has, say, around 300 resistance to poison, which is quite a bit, it would take a minimum of 3 hits with the Astora to proc poison, even if they're phantom hits. Also, the poison Astora can do the knife combo by the by, and are running attack combos into a poison knife if you feel like adding a little more status buildup. For other notable weapons you could think about when using a luck build, you have the usual suspects like the Warden Twin Blades, which is just disgusting. Corvian Scythe is a fun bleed weapon that's really effective in both damage and bleeding people out. Unikiri can cause a lot of buildup with its weapon art into L1 combo, but personally, katanas just aren't my cup of tea, but perhaps you'll like it. And I didn't use the Frayed Blade for some inane reason because I honestly forgot about it, but that's also another really good weapon for luck builds if you have the dex and luck. The R1 into weapon art true combo does something like 225 bleed buildup on 40 dex and 40 luck, so yeah. Also, I think I figured out why sometimes the bleed proc goes off but the damage doesn't apply. I mainly encounter it whenever I hit someone out of their iframes from a roll, like a roll catch for instance, right? I think either it's connection or maybe the game just thinks they're still in iframes, or I don't know. They still take damage from the hit, but the bleed proc just doesn't deal damage. Just wanted to throw that out there in case you ever encounter that. As for poison weapons, in my opinion, I think they're all really good at inflicting damage and poison buildup, barring the Astoras. But there's also another outlier weapon that can be used for status buildup, mainly for poison though, which is the Crow Quills. The R1, L1 is sometimes finicky, but it can cause a lot of buildup, and the weapon art throw on the quills is amazing too, because each individual knife does the full amount of buildup on the weapon at the time. And lastly, for poison, try those poison throwing knives. Mix it in combos, punish parries, or just throw them out. They deal more poison buildup than you think. Side note, I am kinda salty about this one weapon that could have been so cool for a luck build, which is the Eleonora. Look at the weapon art description real quick when you have the time. Makes weapons lacerating and to restore HP for each hit. Weapons, plural. I thought it could have been like an AoE buff to make allies' weapons deal bleed and restore HP on hits, but nah. It only buffs the Eleonora and lasts 25 seconds. Like, come on, man. The shenanigans that could have been had. Anyways, that's all that I have for this video. I maybe could have gone a little more in depth, but I felt that everything I said in this video is the most relevant stuff you could use while using a luck build. And hopefully this could give you a foothold on making a luck build. If anything, luck builds are one of, if not the most fun build I've ever created in the game. And who knows, it could also be yours. So if you made it this far, whether it be a subscriber or just a passerby, thank you for watching. I know I've never been one to be consistent in uploading videos, mainly because I never wanted to burn out on the game, which I can safely say I haven't in a very long time. But the gap between this video and the last video was different and made me appreciate uploaders more than I have. Everything after this is just some real talk, so I just want to give a heads up that it's alright if you want to end the video here. Again, thank you for watching. But for the people that are still here, I'm just a regular guy for the most part. And knowing somewhat the process of making content for an audience, it opened my eyes that some people see uploaders as an identity, you know what I mean? These are real people with real problems in a life outside of their channel. I guess I thought about that because of what I went through these past months. I got my first job while in college too, gained new friends, lost some, and I don't know, it's just surreal, I guess. The thing is, I know the problems I go through, but I don't know other people's problems, and it's because of that. I just wanted to say, maybe it'd be good to just be aware of that. That people you meet in game or in real life, they go through problems too, and you may not know how bad that guy has it. That's primarily why I bow in Dark Souls 3 95% of the time when I invade. That host you invaded or BM'd on your corpse, that could have just been someone who had a rough day, you never know. Not saying that some hosts or invaders don't deserve some salt, but it's good to keep that under control, and if you don't, hey, that's up to you. And if you're going through something, I don't know who you are, your situation, or even your name, but I just wanted to say, I hope things turn out for the better. It may not be good, or it may not get better soon, but eventually it will. And I know I may be young, but even my problems, big or small, I know that to be a fact. And I guess I wanted to say that because maybe no one has said that to you. So, keep your head up and stay positive. Besides, we got Elden Ring on the horizon, fellas. We gotta hold out. Anyways, hopefully I can make more Dark Souls 3 videos since things have somewhat gone back to normal. We'll see. We'll see. This has been Derpy. I'll see you guys later.